Welcome everybody to Eye of the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card. So today's pick a card is all about how is fate and destiny calling to you, wanting your attention right now for your path, for what you're doing, for your highest good. And I wanted to do this one fairly soon, maybe straight after, I'm not sure exactly when I'm going to publish it, from doing the What is Your Reputation in the Spiritual Realm, because people seem to respond to that quite a lot, and I thought this is a good follow-up. What I'm looking at here is fate and destiny in a very specific way. I'm looking at fate similarly to how Carl Jung would have talked about it, which is when there are things in our unconscious, where there's kind of patterns or expectations we have in our unconscious, we can project those out. He talked particularly about the shadow, but I think it's a bit broader than that. I don't think it's just shadow that we project out, but I think we project out expectations. So we often do that and call it fate. So we think, oh, I always end up with a difficult boss, or I always, end up with someone who doesn't want to commit or whatever. But in this sort of concept around fate, it's not necessarily that that's the case. It's more that you may have that expectation and energetically bring it into being. So the more that we're aware of that, the more we can move through that if it's difficult. But we could also have an expectation that is really positive. People who think very positively, act very positively, often seem to attract luck and good fortune to them. But that may be exactly that working. And it may be partly how some of the law of attraction or manifestation actually works. So I think there is an element which we call fate, which might be patterns. And once we recognize them, we can then convert that into free will and choice. And then there's destiny. And I think there is... whether every life we have has destiny, I'm not sure, but I think there are times when we are meant to meet certain people, we're meant to do certain things, we're meant to be in certain places, and it's partly for our development and often for the development or the connection or the benefit of others as well, or for some bigger social issue. Even if we aren't, on the centre stage in it, somehow we have to be there, and things sort of arrange themselves for that. So I want to have a look at that as well, because that's probably where we don't have a lot of choice, and we need to sort of understand it as part of our destiny. And I think that there are hints of that astrologically, to be honest. If you look at your chart fairly dispassionately, you can see that. You can see kind of what you almost came in to do and that kind of thing. But we'll explore it through tarot here. And then we'll also look at free will. And so like how the bridge between these two things, fate and destiny, and how you best balance them using your free will, because probably most of the things in your life, in actual fact, are free will. And if you understand the sort of fate dynamic, you can turn that into free will. But it also allows you to prepare for and best use any sort of destiny energy as well. So that's what we're going to be looking at. And I'm using firstly the Ego Observer Tarot deck because I feel like it's very psychologically based. And I think there is a lot about psychology, understanding yourself and accepting yourself, not judging yourself too much, just like working out how do you evolve best. That's really important. I'm also going to use the Dark Misfits Tarot because it's a tarot that is square, so it allows me to use it in a particular way. I'm going to consider any time a card comes up upright or reverse that it's putting some emphasis on destiny. Destiny is having something to do with it, even if we're not looking at destiny, even if we're looking at fate or free will. I'm also going to look at if it's moving towards being reversed, then I'm going to see that it is a energy that is about you understanding your fate, and how that might connect to destiny, like where going in the journey, almost a journey to the underworld, to understand that about yourself. If it is kind of returning back up, and I'll show when we get cards like that what I mean. Then I think it's where you are when you've actually done that work and you're ready to assimilate what there is with that. So fate is, you're exploring fate energies if it's on its way to reversed, and you're actually changing and now managing fate energies if it is coming up to upright. So allows us quite a bit of nuance. The other, that's not necessarily different because I have used different tarot decks before, but something different in this one is that I want to actually spend a little bit of time talking about a personal story, doing a personal story time about how I think this works, because I think something kind of close to miraculous happened in my life in the last year or two that had its seeds in decisions before, but also I think in a combination of destiny and a combination then of fate and of releasing fate and of a particular spiritual practice or spiritual thing that I did around about a year or so ago that impacted that. Now, you don't have to listen to this. So what I'm going to do in the introduction, like in the timestamps below, I'll have the first introduction, which is what I'm talking about here. I'll then have story time. I'll then have pile choice. So we'll go back to like the pile choice, and then we'll go into the reading. So you can just jump into choosing a pile now if you want and avoid all of that. But if it's of interest to you, it might show a way that this could potentially work out, even though while all of it was happening, I would have had no idea it was that. But now looking back, I feel that it was. So if that's of interest to you, it's a very personal story. So I don't often share to this degree, but I just felt for this one it would put it into context. So I'm going to tell that personal story now. So a couple of like things to say about myself that puts this in context. I grew up in a very interesting family, and a lot of the reason that I do this is because of that. And I love my family very much, and I do see, great things that came out of that. And I think I was very privileged in many, many ways. But what is true is that I was very different in many ways to the rest of my family, particularly my mother and brother. And as a result, I was kind of fiercely independent because there wasn't a really strong connection. There was a much stronger connection between my mother and brother, and my father was sort of like distant in the family, full stop. So I think without realizing it, inculcated that as I have to be independent, I'm a lone wolf. And as a result of that, and other things probably, I just never really had a significant love relationship. I've never really been drawn to that. I've always thought I was going to be alone. I always thought that was just, my dharma or whatever you want to say. And I wasn't upset about it, but I think, it was something that I accepted in the way that I say that, you might think things are always going to happen. That's just part of who you are. Then you actually maybe manifest that without really even realizing it. So fast forward many, many years, about 10 years ago, I went to, and this is where I think destiny started to set in, I went to an organisation. I started working in an organisation. As it turned out, the role that had been advertised was not really what the role was like. Plus, I had health issues. The two things meant I didn't stay there more than a few months when I thought I was probably going to stay there for a number of years. And what was interesting, though, was that I stayed there long enough to meet a couple of people, one of whom was in my team and one who I kind of knew tangentially related to a project that connected to work that my team was doing. And the next role I went to, because this person in my team was brilliant, I could see how he would be amazing doing some stuff that was in the team that I was then managing. And so I sort of sought him out to see if he'd be interested, and he came and worked with me again. And he also then asked me to talk to the other person who he was friends with about, her career, because she was feeling a bit stuck where she was. And I met with her. As I said, I didn't know her all that well when I was actually at the organisation, but I met with her. I was amazed, amazing woman, amazing strength, intelligence, resilience, adaptability. Like I was kind of in awe in many ways. And I thought, wow, she's got a skill set that would fit with a different team. Like her background was very different to mine and the guys, so, but that would fit very well with something I knew, what they were looking for in another part of the organisation. So I connected her up, and she ended up working in the same organisation, just in a different team. And those two got together, and, for a while I thought maybe I was matchmaker, but I had to realise once I heard the story properly that they were probably already together at the point I spoke to her. So that's fine. But like I became very close with them, and we became very close friends, and they're just lovely, lovely people. Anyway, fast forward again quite a long time from there. I'd moved on, he'd moved on, she'd moved on, but we'd stayed friends, and they stayed together, and they got married. They had a little girl who I just adore and who I really connected with. And to be honest, I don't really connect with children normally at all. So this was very unique. And then around about, what would it be, about 7 years ago or something like, that was when that girl was born. And around that same time, my brother died, and that was the last person in my family. So I was very much alone at that point. I just did not have immediate family anymore. But as I say, I probably thought, this is what is going to be the case, and so I didn't really think a great deal about it. Then fast forward again, and we get to, a couple of years ago, they had a second little girl, and And then I started doing some spiritual work, which I'll get to, again, which probably I had no idea was potentially connected with all of this. And I was starting to think about my living arrangements and what I was going to do and where I was going to live. And I kind of did a couple of false starts around all of that. But then one day I just happened to be with my friends and the eldest little girl. And she sort of said, do you live with anybody? And I said, no. And she said to her mother, as her mother came in, she went, why can't Helen live with us? She doesn't have anyone to live with. And like at first I was like, oh, wow. And I said to her, oh, I think you'd get sick of me. And she's like, no, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. And then in the end, we started talking about it because like neither of us had really thought about it. But as it happened, I mean, I'd decided that some of the other choices I had about where to live weren't really going to work out for me. And these people happened to be living in a house that had a studio apartment connected to it. And we just started talking about, well, maybe I would do it. And I hadn't really thought about it, but looked into it, decided it would work. And I now live in the studio apartment. But what is really lovely is that I have all my independence still and all that kind of thing and privacy and all of that. But I'm also like the honorary grandmother to these little girls. I can see the family, frequently. It's lovely. It's beautiful to have that support. It feels like you've been welcomed into a family, but also that you're not being expected to be there all the time, etc. And it's really interesting because I would never have seen myself as being with a family in the later years of my life. I expected to be alone. And now it's like, oh, I'm actually going to be with a family in the later years of my life, which is just extraordinary. Now, what is interesting about this, and this is where I think the fate thing and looking at and working with patterns comes in, is around the time that I was first starting to think about what my living arrangements were. So before this idea even came into anybody's head, I did some shamanic journeying. I was working with Rena from Gold Key Guidance, and she's a very good shaman, and she was looking at ancestral trauma and healing that. And so I had done quite a bit of work around that in healing the relationship that I had with my primary family. And it was a very profound thing to do. And now when I look back at it, what I think happened, particularly when I look at it through this frame, is that cleared a lot of energy and it cleared an expectation of almost pain or isolation associated with being in a family for me. And I would never have thought that was then going to literally turn into something where I did have a connection and I did feel really connected in that sort of way. And yet that's what happened. So I feel that I didn't even necessarily know there was a block along those lines. I just thought it was what it was, but there probably was. And doing that work, I think, is the kind of thing I'm pointing at here, which is that if we understand where we might have created an expectation of our life and then live into it without even being conscious of it, if we can work on that spiritually or psychologically or whatever it is, then we can release that and then opportunities open up we didn't expect. So I think I was meant to meet this family, or originally these two people. I think that part of my life path now is to be a support for them, and they are obviously a beautiful support for me as well. But I really feel they also, and their children have given me this sort of sense of like really caring about the future in a way that I think I felt detached from. So it's really lovely. It's a lovely thing to have happened. I'm incredibly blessed, I think, but I also think this shows exactly this energy. I think I was meant to meet them. I think that was destined, because why I went to a workplace, I only stayed there for 3 months, and yet such profound things came out of it is really incomprehensible unless you believe destiny is involved on one level. And then I think the clearing of that psychological stuff through the shamanic journeying was incredibly profound and brought about real material outcomes that I wouldn't have expected and which have been such a blessing. So that's kind of why I wanted to look at it this way, and that's my personal story. And as I say, I feel very blessed with it. So if you have listened to the story, thank you. I'd be very interested if anybody has had, like, if you don't have to have something that was exactly similar, but have found things like that as well in your life. If so, if you feel like sharing, put it in the comments. That would be lovely and interesting to hear. But otherwise, let's stop talking about me, because this isn't really about me. It was just an illustration. I'll now move to the pile choice. So If you didn't listen to the story time, we're in the pile choice now. So what we have here is a major arcana card from Ego Observer to help you choose what pile to go to. And of course you can go to more than one pile if you want. There might be more about destiny in one and more about fate in another. That's completely up to you. There are two other cards from the Ego Observer Tarot. I don't know whether they're major arcana or not. One will be around the fate energy and one will be the bridge between destiny and fate to have a look at that allows, or the free will bridge, like where is free will playing out. That gives us a bit of a feeling about the bigger issues around fate and destiny for you at the moment. And then we'll start using tarot and other things to look into it more. So for pile number one, we have the Wheel of Fortune, I think. I just need to, yes it is. It's hard to read the writing. Wheel of Fortune. For pile number two, we have the Moon. And for pile number three, we have the Devil. Now, don't be too scared to go to that one. The Devil can sometimes just be that there's very big picture issues for you in terms of destiny, like you're meant to be on the world stage or powerful or those sort of things, or you may actually help people free themselves from addictions and feeling trapped or whatever. So I don't think it means anything dark about your destiny at all, but it's big. There's a big energy around that. So when you know what reading or readings you want to go to, the timestamps are in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome, pile one, to your reading. So you came to the reading with Wheel of Fortune around destiny. What that would tell me is a few things. I think that timing is very, very important around when destiny comes in. Timing has a lot to do with things. It's a lucky energy, I have to say. I think that this would suggest that with divine timing and imperfect timing, fortune comes to you. Abundance comes to you, but only at the time that it's meant to. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. It's not necessarily that one would be born into money and abundance. You might have been. If you were, that was the right timing, and it means that right from the beginning you have to have had that foundation to move with. But I think with most of you, looking at the energy over here, which is around fate, and then the energy of the bridge of free will, I think almost the opposite may have occurred. I think that many of you probably were born into not having sort of a lot of money, a lot of privilege or anything like that. Maybe enough, but like not something that would sort of say, oh, this is an inherently lucky environment. But I think that there is a real generation of energy to create your own luck and your own timing. And I think that you have, as part of your destiny kit bag here, a very good sense of that. So under certain circumstances, you could potentially be someone who played the stock market really well, who'd be able to, or, in the property market, know when to buy and when to sell, or somebody who knew how to do inspiring things at just the right time to hit the zeitgeist that people would respond to. But I feel like you are meant, like there is a destiny to build abundance. And it's interesting, we've got the heart sign there. I think maybe also abundance that you share with others, and the more that you share with others, the more abundance you build. I think there's a connection there. But I do feel that you came in with an innate sense of timing and almost a bit prophetic. And that is part of what will create the big ticket things for you. But they will happen when they are meant to happen. You'll just find yourself in a place at the right time for something to happen. And some people might call you lucky, and they might not actually see how much effort you put into it. Because when we look at the fate energy with growth, we have the Nine of Wands. This is also why I feel like you didn't start feeling like you had a natural pathway to win. You think of that Nine of Wands, and it's like at the point in a marathon where do I have the energy to get across the finish line? Can I win? I think this is showing that there are three distinct phases, I think, where if you understand that energy with timing, because we've got the three sort of infinity symbols there, you can create this growth. So you really can do it. But I think that one of the big things for you is to work out how to get past a sense of self-autonomy and how much it's around luck or where you started. So for some of you, a big thing is to sort of move away from where you started, in the sense of, if you go, I didn't have privilege, I didn't have, it was hard, like every step was hard. To some degree that's true, and you're seeing it. That's what you're responding to. Your fate is it's hard, you start, the person there is kind of like gripping their knees, and then they're standing a little bit, and then they're standing up. So I think part of the fate energy is that it may have been a struggle to get across certain finish lines, but if you look back at it, the timing still was perfect. If you had tried to do it earlier, it wouldn't have worked. If you tried to do it later, it wouldn't have been as helpful. So recalibrating that understanding and the bridge, the free will bridge, we have the Page of Swords, curiosity. We have communication with others. We have inspiration and lightning bolts of understanding and aha moments, but mainly it's curiosity. So where you can move away from the struggle and where you create the free will that allows all the preconditions to work to their highest good around creating abundance and what appears to be luck, is that when you give up the sense that this is just a struggle and you make it an exploration. You say, oh, wow, like, this is interesting. Okay, if there's some problems and some struggles here, I can do something with this. I can learn from it. I can grow. And you see how the person seems to be on the mountain and they're kind of like so joyful, where before they might have been like looking down and thinking, what's the struggle? So I do feel that there's a sort of sense of, instead of thinking of it as a constant set of marathons that you have to get across the finish line, look at it as an exploration. That makes this all align. So this is a very clear message about how to work with that energy. I think you are destined to do well, but it will be a series of steps that do it, and you'll trigger this energy more. The more curious you are, the quicker you can do it. That's, I think, what this is talking about. So let's have a look at the current patterns that you might be seeing here with fate. That's usually a good place to start. Then we're going to look at how is sort of external world energies or whatever playing out there in terms of what seems to be destiny and all the things that create the preconditions of destiny. And then we're going to look at how these two can combine to get to the free will that works for you really well. So we'll just explore this a bit. Now, as I said in the introduction, we're using the Dark Misfits Tarot now. If I get upright or reverse, this is a big thing where destiny. So when we're looking at fate, if I get a few upright or reverse, there's some destiny energies here to understand in the context of understanding what are the patterns that you are maybe unconsciously living into. And if we are seeing something that's moving to that, it's to understand a bit more. And if we see something that's moving up, it's to get to this curiosity. So let's just see where you stand around understanding and using your fate at this point. So we have the Nine of Pentacles you need to understand something about the patterns you're seeing or the fate here with the Nine of Pentacles. We have the Two of Wands. So these are two things where understanding and looking at that is important. We have the King of Pentacles. So you are already starting to head towards this. So that's good. Like, there's some wins you've had. And I think that if you can look at it, you'll see those. And I'll get into this in more detail. We then have the Ace of Swords reversed. And we have the Six of Swords heading towards understanding it. So, okay. So the first thing I'm going to say is that I do think that, if you feel a resonance to what I'd said at the beginning, it's because you've already probably got at least one of these. You've gone at least one point where maybe it was a struggle and you really did wonder, am I going to be able to have a pattern where I can grow? But you did get there. And the reason I say that is because we've got the King of Pentacles, which is like the creation of abundance, is on its way up already. There's something that you've done in your life, whether it's a job that you've done, a business that you've done, a creative idea, whatever it is, it's getting very close to giving you some really good, abundant outcomes to show you that it works and to show you that you can do it. So you're not starting from this baseline. I feel you're at least there. You may be even there. So there is certainly an energy where you've done a lot around the practical and material sides of this. What does growth mean on that level? I think you've probably been incredibly hardworking, actually. And I think you may still at this point think it's hard work that's done it. And that is part of it. But it is also starting to understand. You're meant to start to understand the timing thing. Because we have like the Nine of Pentacles going down here. So there's a struggle on your own energy here to deal with. And it has you you've done a lot yourself, and you may well have wanted to create something on your own, like a business or something like that. But whatever it is, you have kind of been a lone wolf, and you've done it yourself. You haven't really felt like you had help or people supporting you, so to speak. And this is partly because you are going to get the timing. You're going to be in the right place at the right time. But you have felt that. And exploring this is probably part of this, is to understand who can actually help you. Like that you don't have to do it all on your own, because we also have the Two of Wands heading down there. There's a sort of sense of, is there a choice about partnership, creative partnership and so forth, that will actually make it less of a struggle. And with the Ace of Swords reversed, there is a new inspiration that that is connecting you there. There is a calling coming for you from the timing. It's like an idea you've had, but you haven't started to do it yet. But it is kind of the next thing. But I feel like it's almost like something that you've been working on is taking you maybe to the first level. This is a calling for the second level. So this is a calling to really start to understand. But I think one of the things that this is asking you to do is say, why do you feel that it all has to be done by you? Think about that, because this new idea would potentially go faster and align quicker to your destiny in combination with others. And you already have enough of an idea, with the Six of Swords going down here, enough of an idea to be the leader on this. So it's saying you don't have to give up the creation and the idea, but you know where that's going. So it's who might you bring on board to help you with it, whether this is like a career thing, a creative thing, whatever it is. It may also connect to the heart in some way. It might be you don't have to be alone, and you've got a great idea and someone is just absolutely right for you in terms of love as well. But you're definitely, I think you're either at this point going to that, so going to that, or you're at that point going to that. But either way, you have actually worked out that you can do stuff. It might feel like a struggle, but you can do it. And you're about to have a really strong aha moment about what level you're at and what that can release. But this is just asking you to have a think about, be curious about what other people can bring to the table. Okay, so then let's see how it's linking with what might be seen to be the destiny energy. And the external world in particular, where because destiny sort of feels like when the external world creates certain things, like opens up certain opportunities or closes certain opportunities. So what is going on with that for you? We have the Five of Cups heading towards, like you've processed something towards the Five of Cups. We have the Nine of Cups heading towards understanding it. Oh, that's interesting. We have the Lovers, okay, heading towards, you've worked something else and the Star, all right. So interestingly enough, you're in a transitional point. The call of destiny, which is inspiration, that is the timing thing, is operating with you, but it's operating where you're looking at your fate. And so this is telling you the various things that are important around that. It's saying that it's, for some of you, this is about love in your life, to be honest, and the right timing for that, and not being alone. For others, it will be someone who shares a passion and has a good connection. You have been burnt as well. Like, it's interesting with the fire here, by connections with others. It may be that your family was actually difficult on this level, and you've made yourself alone for that reason. But you've actually started to process that and decide what would be the type of relationship you would want, whether it's a business relationship, a creative relationship, a love relationship. You have actually done a lot of work on that. So you're heading towards, and therefore the external world is going to start to provide the right people. This is why it's saying, like, think about others, because there's the timing is coming into play there. But part of it is that you've got to up your expectations too, because with Nine of Cups going down to head, it's like you don't have an expectation of the true abundance that you could have. So explore why that is. Why do you feel that either you've got to do it on your own to succeed, or that even if you had others around, or if you do it on your own, you're not going to get fully what you dream of. Like, you've got to kind of compromise, because this is not a compromising energy. This is a growth energy. And being curious is really, really important. Like not thinking, oh, I can't have what I want. Thinking, what are the ways to do it? What am I learning with this, particularly about how I'm linking with others? Because your sense of your direction and therefore alignment of your path, your goals and your destiny are starting to align. Like it's starting to come into being. And so this is a very exciting time. This is a time to really, really think about, how do I solve my problems? How do I make this exciting? How do I not worry about success? Because in a way, success is going to come from me knowing that this is all for my growth. So then let's get 3 cards for how the free will aspect operates. So the timing is coming. You are going to have something very successful. You are starting to really align to what your destiny is, and it is about abundance. But the lesson of growth is partly you don't have to do it on your own, and partly that look at it as a problem to solve, and something that's exciting and interesting, not as something that is going to limit you having what you dream of. So how is the kind of curiosity energy, how is the free will helping you? We have the Page of Pentacles moving up to, you've done a lot of work on this materially. We have the Two of Pentacles. Because I'll get to this in a minute. And then we have the Two of Swords. Okay, the Ace to the Two of Swords. So all the choices are yours. You're going to end up with the abundance anyway, it says, but you could make it easier by connecting with other people, and you could make it a hell of a lot easier by just being curious and seeing this as kind of a problem to solve, a puzzle to solve, something that's fun. It is saying that you have to kind of look into materially, because you are about to have a great material success. Like if you're going for a job, you're about to get it. If you're trying to build an investment, it's going to work for you. There's some big material thing with the Page of Pentacles coming up here, with the King of Pentacles coming up here. You have done a lot of work on this, but there's still a residual thing about, could there be some things I have no choice about? And yet that's going there too. It's saying in the destiny thing, are you feeling like you're blocking your destiny by thinking you don't have a choice? This is saying you do have a choice. Like you've already really proved it to yourself, and you can do that again. It's not a pattern that like I have to struggle because I started struggling. It's actually, I solved that and I've got somewhere. I can do the same thing. I can create and manifest what I want. So there's a lot of really positive energy here, pile 1. Okay, so let's have a look at kind of like some of the shadowy stuff that might be around fate that you need to kind of be aware of. Like there's a big thing here about expecting that it has to be a struggle and expecting that you're alone, but we'll see what else we get. Stained glass. A fractured past does not mean a broken future. Light finds its way through. So yeah, I think something in the way that you were brought up, your early years or whatever, made you think you're on your own and it's a struggle, but it's not. Light is coming through. And window. So here's the window for it to come through. Something unseen watches over you, offering silent protection. So you have very strong spirit guides around you as well. And part of this, I think that, I just said you've never really been alone. You felt like you were, but you never were really alone. And now there's an aha moment about that and what you can do with it. I kind of think your spirit guide wants you to have a bit of fun, to be honest, because it's going to work out. You're meant to do well. Okay, so let's see on a spiritual level, what might the combination of conquering fate and accepting destiny look like for you? And this is just to sort of see someone from history, a saint or a mystic, that could be a little bit like what your spiritual path is here and what you could achieve, or the areas you could achieve it in. And we have, wow, Isaac Newton, discovery. Yeah, discovery. There is something about things that are new, and a sense about the future and about timing and about how the world works. You really do get that. And that's part of the reason you're going to be really, really successful. It's like, it's just claiming that, thinking about, and Isaac Newton, I think, isn't it I think he's the one that was the story that the apple fell on his head and he thought about gravity. I think it was him. But in any case, it's like the thing that comes out of the blue, the thing that's surprising, the thing that makes him curious was the thing that made him successful. So I think that's a good prototype of the kind of inspirational energy, which is why even if you felt you were born into a struggle in one form or another, whether it was being born into an abundance but feeling never like you could never live up to it and never carry the legacy on, or whether it was not being born into an abundance at all and feeling everything was a struggle, you're very inspirational, and this is something that you're meant to start to understand and accept and see your free will as make it curious, make it fun, solve the puzzle. Okay. Let's also have a look at the astrology energy. So we're going to have a look at what helps and what limits, like what you have to be aware of, what helps you to marry your fate and your destiny in a way that is for your highest good, and what may kind of astrological energies within you that kind of hinder it or make it difficult. So what helps is Sun and Saturn. So your life path, this is saying you are meant to build abundance, is very Capricornian, like you are meant to create stability. There's also there's something for you that has to do with family and has to do with your upbringing. You are meant to create your own sense of discipline. Like I think you probably learnt a sense of discipline and a very good sense of like the material. That will help you because that's where you're going to create things. But I do think there's sort of something about the legacy of your upbringing that ultimately works for you. What potentially keeps you a little bit trapped in the kind of fate thing, so that you can actually know how to let that go? Venus and Neptune. Okay. It may well be that for you in your family, particularly with this sort of energy, that there was a sort of a sense of you doing what you really wanted to do and what you would want to create. There might have been a sense that you were kind of a bit arty and a bit dreamy, and you weren't going to actually do something with it. It may be that you chose a very artistic or a very spiritual sort of way of doing things, and you thought that's going to be difficult to do because what you kind of learned and you knew in a way for whatever reason was how to deal with either austerity or the sort of like the rigidity that can come from the opposite with abundance sometimes. But like reclaiming the beauty of what you want to do and the dream of what you want to do, and understanding that this almost kind of severe energy can be used to create that. It's not a bar to it. Doesn't have to be a struggle. Just get to the curiosity. I think that's the energy that Spirit's trying to say to you. So let's just see, like on a day-to-day level, in terms of your kind of energy and the way that you're dealing with sort of fate and destiny, with the chakra energy, what's going on at the moment to be aware of. Firstly, we have the crown chakra. I sense my higher self. I'm going to put that there. I think you are very connected to your higher self. That's why that's actually very beautiful if you don't see it as something that makes life hard. And I think you do have a very strong spirit guide. We have the heart. Again, going back to the heart. I love with compassion. Yeah, I think that you do care about other people, but I think that you've just you've held yourself separate because of whatever this is. But like sometimes it's understanding either the difficulties of your upbringing or the rigidity of it, and loving beyond that and connecting, because there is something here about connecting with the right people to really bring in the right timing and the right abundance. And we have crown chakra again. I sense knowledge overwhelm, overactive. So sometimes you feel like there's too much coming through. This is probably why it feels a bit like a struggle. It's probably why we've got the 9 of Wands. So like when that's the case, you can turn that off a bit. Just give yourself some time out. If you are in the curiosity, the exploration mode, sometimes it's going to feel like too much. Maybe ask your guides to sort of pull back on some of the sort of spiritual downloads or whatever. And I love yourself with compassion. Love that you can do this, but curiosity doesn't mean you'll have to do it all tomorrow. You can pace yourself, which is the other energy of the 9 of Wands. Okay, so what we're going to do to finish off is I want to look at some sort of spiritual gift or approach that could really help you make the most of your destiny and understanding your fate energy and how your free will helps you. And so I'm using the Magic and Mediums deck, and I'm going to just ask you to pick a number between 1 and 5, and I'm just going to deal out 5 cards, and I'm going to say what I think each mean for a spiritual approach, things to study, whatever it might be, that would really help you with this. So if you don't have your numbers, pause, because I'm about to start to deal. So for number 1, taboo. Okay. For number 2, healing. For number 3, intuition. For number 4, elemental magic. For number 5, guide. Okay. So for number 1, there is something, maybe part of this thing and why it's a struggle is you feel like you're moving against the grain, either of what society accepts or what your family accepts or any of those sort of things. But it is inviting you to be curious about that. Why is something taboo? look into it. Don't just avoid it, and don't feel that you can't do it. There's something, I think you're a bit groundbreaking. That's the energy to be aware of. If you chose number 2, then there's something around this either healing you. It's saying this whole process is meant to be healing, or there's something about you and your inspiration and how you will create abundance that has to do with healing yourself and others. So if you've always felt that there was a kind, and that could fit with the Pentacles energy coming to the surface, the healing that you've done for yourself, you can help others with in some way. If you chose number 3, you're highly intuitive. That's really connecting into the Ace of Swords and the Two of Swords. Like, really trust your intuition. Trust the downloads you're getting. Look at them as something curious. And know that you've got a very strong guide. I think there's a kind of a feline energy to the guide here for you, because it seems to be leading you towards what you need to go towards. If you chose number 4, then you can use kind of the elements to help you. You've done this really well with the earth element. So, the kind of things like pentacles and so forth, the pentacles energy. But maybe have a think about particularly air and fire. I think they're 2 that are very important. But equally, like the cups is important too. It's like there's a lot of emotional energy here. Allow yourself to bring that into balance. And if you chose number 5, again, very strong guide energy. Like, I think both of these have very strong guide energies, and you have a strong guide anyway, but this is like really doubling down on that. Trust that very loyal guide. In this one, a very strategic guide. So it sort of like depends upon which you chose. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you can sort of see from this what your destiny is, but like also how you can manage fate and patterns and expectations through your free will to get to that sooner. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 2, to your reading. So you come to the reading with the moon, with cycles. This card represents the fate energy, the sort of expectations or whatever that are maybe unconscious, that are being created by those unconscious beliefs. And this represents the free will energy that you bring to things. What I would say is that you as a group actually have probably either understood intuitively or even sort of academically the kind of concept I'm talking about here, or you just do it naturally. Because there is a sense here that is saying to me that your kind of fate energy, things that tend to happen, are usually more positive than negative. It doesn't mean that there's everything that happens is wonderful, but you look like someone who has accepted that there are ups and downs, and your basic approach is to celebrate and maximize what is the ups, and so to speak, and then in a free will surrender and accept the downs, because that's just what this looks like. So the moon to me means that in your destiny there is much to uncover, much that is hidden, divine feminine energy potentially. But there is a kind of a flow, a natural sense of the flow of things. I think in your life, in destiny, there will be times where you are very brilliant and seen and celebrated, and other times where you are very private. I think that is, I just have this sort of sense of private, a little bit less private till seen, then going back to private and then around. Like there's very big phases in your life and you're very much in flow, and that is for a purpose. There is a time for everything for you, and there is a pattern to it, and you've kind of understood the pattern. Hence why with the 3 of Cups over here, you know when to celebrate. Like what it makes me feel of actually is like I'm not saying you are a farmer, but I'm just saying like a really good farmer who understands that there are the cycles in life and in growth. And when the harvest comes in is celebrated. And when winter is in and one has to wait through it, all those harsher climates, one surrenders and believes and knows, because there is a positive energy here that things will rise again and things will be better. So I feel like you're very balanced, actually. I don't think there's much in the fate energy that you have to let go of, in actual fact. I think it's more that you leverage it. You leverage it by understanding sometimes the small wins, are the journey to the bigger wins and so forth. So that's interesting for you. But you also, there's a very strong spiritual energy here, I think, of going, I'm not going to fight when it's pointless to fight. I'm going to surrender and trust, because I believe things will come round. I believe there is a time for everything. So that is a very resilient sort of energy. And I think a very successful one in many ways. So we're going to first of all look at this energy, the fate energy. We're then going to have a look at how the external world and maybe more the destiny comes in. And then lastly, we're going to look at how you use your free will. And as I said in the introduction, we're going to use the Dark Misfits. So this is a square deck, and so it will be able to tell me whether we have energy that is heading towards, if it's upright or reversed, then it's something that has to do with your destiny energy. If it is heading towards reversed, then it has to do with stuff around your fate energy that you need to kind of look at and think about or leverage. And if it is coming up towards upright, then it's something you've already done that with and that you can use and help. So around the fate energy for you, we have the Ace of Pentacles heading towards, you've done some work on something materially. We have the Page of Wands similarly heading towards that. We have the Five of Pentacles. So that you've been in this situation, actually, I think. You're coming into something better. You're about to come into something better. The Four of Wands reverse has to do with connections with others, family, teams or whatever. And the Six of Cups. Actually, it has a lot to do with upbringing, childhood dreams, family. So I think that you actually learnt this capacity to, I'm going to jump to these first. You learnt this capacity to see the wins and to celebrate them, and also know there is also the times when it's a little bit more like Five of Pentacles. It's sort of like it's, I'm not making the money, I'm not moving forward or whatever. But to be okay with that, you did learn it when you were young. And I think most of you learnt it partly through family members that didn't see it, and that you kind of escaped into a world of like, it wasn't make-believe because you're actually right and your energy actually creates this. But you are able to take something from very young and like the difficulties of being very young and difficulties around maybe money and connection or whatever. And you created like, I can see this on a different level. I have a dream of this. There's almost an innocence to it, but there's a great profundity to it as well. So I think that you learnt this pattern almost by dealing with people in your family or friends or whatever it was who didn't think, who thought that everything was always in conflict, who thought that everything, like went other people's ways, who thought that everything was a battle. So the battle rather than surrender. So I think you kind of found a space, almost a magical space, to have that innocence and that belief and those dreams. And as a result, you focused on the glass half full, basically. And because of that, I think you've been in a bit of a time recently where it was more like a bit more hidden or not as connected with others or not as materially growthful, but you're about to come out of that. There is a new opportunity coming, Ace of Pentacles, a new blessing materially, and it's got to do with some sort of creative or passionate energy, and you're going to be able to, the time to celebrate is coming, the time to grow is coming. You've been through the surrender, but there's something that you learnt when you were really young that gives you this resilience, and it's a sort of a mix of innocence and resilience, but innocence not in the sense of ignorance at all. It's like, it's actually understanding something very fundamental about the universe, I think. So let's have a look at how the destiny energy, so the cycles, how is that impacting at the moment? We have justice reversed. Okay, yes, something has not been fair or something has not been right. We have the Ace of Cups heading towards looking at this, connecting with and needing to enact that. The Queen of Pentacles reversed. And then we have the Ten of Pentacles reversed. Okay. There's something very much, like if it's not an energy around your family, it's an energy around a workplace or something. Just depends whether you relate to that going all the way back to your workplace or whether this is all the way back to your family or whether it's a workplace issue. There is something in this cycles thing. It's been a difficult cycle. You did surrender to it. You did understand and you're heading now towards something better, but it looks as though there was like financial difficulties, injustice operating, like there wasn't a sense of security. You couldn't have a sense of security around it, but like being able to surrender, like using your free will to go, I trust that this is just a cycle. there was a little bit of a broken heart energy around it for some reason. There was a little bit of like, that's very disappointing that happened. But you also saw in a way it had to happen. So if it was like a disconnect from your family, it had to happen so that you could protect your heart and protect your joy and protect your innocence. And if it's something in work, then this happened. This cycle had to happen to clear the way for you to do something else. And the energy is going to come, something new is coming in, but something had to almost fail or not harvest. But this capacity to still see that you can move past that's something you've held on to, and it's something that will allow you to come out of that thing. So you're very strong, pile 2. Very strong. So let's see how your free will, which is this surrender, like knowing when to have the battle and knowing when to go, okay, it's just not the right season, which makes you so emotionally and mentally healthy compared to most of us. So I really admire this energy. So how is free will operating for you? The 5 of Cups coming up to it's been resolved. Yeah, you know how to deal with disappointment. The King of Pentacles coming up to there. As a result, this Ace of Pentacles you are going to not only just get a little bit better, you're going to hit the full thing, and you're going to have a true harvest to celebrate. And the Page of Pentacles, because you'll do good planning and you know what to do. And in a weird way, it's like you learned from what happened. Like you could almost even celebrate the block because it taught you even more about how to build for something that was sustainable. So you're so psychologically healthy. It's amazing. Good on you. But like you're going to have the reward because you expect the reward, but you're right. It's going to happen. You learn from it. It's really, really powerful. So let's see a couple of energies around the fate that may be a little bit more tricky or that you need to be aware of. By and large, as I say, you've pretty much got this covered, but what could be curveballs or whatever to be aware of? Tears, a sorrow not your own will soon become yours to carry. Okay, so someone else around you may be okay to deal with this, but I think you're going to be called upon to show other people how to deal with it. So and maybe that becomes part of the destiny, like understanding the cycles and being able to help other people and be able to, like with the moon, uncover that and help people get to their sense of joy and understanding of the cycles. But I think you will be called upon to help others with this in some form or another. And Raven, a message comes not as a warning, but as a sign of long-awaited change. So you kind of sense this. You've got a really strong guide or something like that, like Raven, like a psychopomp almost. There is a sense of news is coming that will be good. You sense it. I think you're actually very psychic. This is the other thing. I think that you can sort of sense the timing. It's why you don't panic. You just kind of go, okay, I'm going to wait. The message will come when it needs to or whatever. But along with that message, with the change and things getting better, I think there's a responsibility energy. You're going to be asked to help someone else. Okay, so let's see if we were going to look at the best outcome of this destiny, like an understanding your fate energy, the patterns and how you do things and how you're using your free will. Just going to use the Saints and Mystics deck to see, like on a spiritual level, what would be a good comparison to your destiny energy? How would that play out when it's really, really working well? And we have St. Expedite, immediacy. So this is a saint that, from the name is all about, look, there's the raven again. Knowing when to act, knowing the timing. That's actually really interesting. Because if you have the cycles, you know when to surrender and do nothing, but you also know when to celebrate. Like just knowing the timing. When do I celebrate? When do I build? When do I grow? There is a time to every season, as the biblical quote goes. I think there's an energy here. You're very psychically attuned into that. I'm feeling for some of you maybe the Morrigan, actually, interestingly enough. I mean, I don't know why the ravens are making me think that, and then the moon, a feminine energy. But there's definitely a sense of like understanding the immediacy, knowing when to act, and acting really clearly at that point. And see how it's kind of clearing the storm clouds. I think there's a bigger purpose for this for you. I think right now it's sort of played out just well and that you're able to kind of like go very well with the cycles of things. But I think you're actually going to help others. And I think you're going to get a sense of immediacy and urgency, and like really knowing when to respond with the cycles to get the best out of something. Okay. So let's look at astrology energy as well too. What astrology energy really helps you and what might be a bit of a blind spot or an issue to be aware of. So what really helps you, pile 2. We have Venus and Neptune, what you love, what you care for. Very strong feminine energy here, actually very strong connection with divine feminine energies. Really strong. So there's a kind of like a Demeter Persephone thing going on here. There's a Morrigan. There's all of those kind of things. That works really well for you, and you are very psychic connecting to that kind of thing. So that's where it's really working well for you. What about where there could be blind spots or issues? We have Uranus and Pluto. So when things come in that are shocking, like you're very good at knowing the general cycles, but when there's a very big disruptive transformative energy, a tower moment, that would kind of challenge this energy for you a bit. You'd still probably be able to go with the flow more than others, but I think there's going to be something that happens that might be helping others where there is a big shock to the system. And you'll realize a larger cycle that's operating. It's not really that you're wrong, but it's a larger cycle and it makes you want to act. There's sort of like you are meant to do this on a bigger stage than you're doing at the moment, I think, to do with really big change. It's almost like timeline changes, like when the clock sets in a slightly different way. But after that, you will understand because you'll have seen it and felt it, what the new cycle is. So that's interesting. But don't be dismayed by a really big change because the same process you've already mastered is going to work for you. Okay, so let's see in terms of how it works for you around chakra energy. What do you need to know for that? So firstly, we have the crown chakra. I sense hyper-spiritualization. Okay, sometimes it's like big stuff coming. Something big's coming in, actually, for this group. And whatever it might be, you're very good at this. You're very good at dealing with it. You're exactly the right person for it. But I think to help others, some sort of sorrow, some sort of big social change, political change, something, economic change, you are going to get a lot of downloads. So don't block it. Just remember that this is part of who you are. We have the heart chakra. I love myself but neglect self-care. Yes, but equally, don't. If you're doing a lot for others, make sure you do find time for self-care as well. I think you've known that before, but I just think something big is coming. Something very destined is coming. And then we have the root chakra. I am connected, balanced. Yeah, you are connected to others. You are connected to spirit. You are connected to very strong guides. You're connected to the divine feminine. And at your base, you are safe as a result of that. I think this is one of the things. This is why you're so healthy. I think you kind of know, even when you have to surrender, even when things are difficult, that you are safe and that things are going to turn and grow again. Okay. So last but not least, we're going to look at a spiritual, magical energy gift or whatever that could be helpful in really, really taking this forward. And I think for most of you, it's when you deal with this very big shift and understanding the bigger picture that you're being called by destiny to do because you are so ready to do it compared to the average person. So I'm just going to ask you to think of a number between 1 and 5. I'm going to lay out cards from the Magic and Mediums deck just to see what that means, so depending upon which you choose. So if you need to, pause to choose the number because I'm about to lay them out. So for number 1, we have believe. For number 2, we have influence. For number 3, we have the Sacred Heart. Oh, there's the Divine Feminine for you. For number 4, we have journey. And for number 5, we have release. Okay. So I would say that of all of you, if you chose number 1, you're the one that probably least understands how good you are at this. So like really take from this, really believe, understand you are so much more balanced than the average person. And you might sometimes think, oh, really? But you are. And you're going to be called upon to deal with others. Believe in yourself. Believe you are here for a purpose because you can see the cycles on a level that others can't. If you chose number 2, you're meant to influence others. You're meant to take this and influence the way that things occur. You have a kind of a magical ability. You will help lift others up. You will help them. You'd be an amazing coach or guide in this sort of space. If you chose number 3, there is something very spiritual about what's going on, and what is going to be coming to you as downloads or whatever is extremely spiritual. So I think it's actually almost the connection of the divine feminine with the divine masculine. I think, and with the creation of the heart that comes with that, the sacred heart. Very sacred, very spiritual. but you have been chosen. You have been chosen. If you chose number 4, I would suggest doing something like shamanic journeying. You're going to learn even more about this and understand even more about it. I feel like that will tell you something, and it may release energy to bring in what you need. I feel like almost like once you start to do stuff for other people and this bigger stuff comes in, it would give you the energy that you need. And last but not least, if you went for number 5, you are going to help others release the energy in the way that you can, in the way of surrender, like to take. And I think you're a peacekeeper, actually. That's another thing I'm getting. I feel like with those two together, there's something about your energy and like it's bringing peace to something. So you have a very big role in that, in understanding the cycles and the right time to do that. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 3, to your reading. So you came to the devil as your destiny energy. And as I said in the introduction, you're brave if you do it, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything evil. But what I can say looking at this is your destiny energy. This is your fate energy, the thing to understand and fully bring into your free will, the patterns or whatever. And then this is the free will energy. I think this group's here for some pretty big stuff. Now, as I said in the introduction, maybe with the devil, it's like big organizations, big politics, big social issues, big power issues, big spiritual war issues. Any of those things could be the case, but it could be also other things as well too, but it's pretty big. What we're looking at here, I think, is that you have a destined energy to work with power and probably almost both the light and dark aspects to understand all of it and what each offers and how to balance that. And you're almost destined to be really focused on whatever this is. I don't think that you are going to, I think you probably felt a sense of destiny from when you were young and you weren't wrong. And I think that you've always felt drawn to and dedicated to something. And it is karmically what you're meant to do. Like you, on a free will level, you kind of go, yeah, I do have free will, but I understand the implications of what I'm here to do. Any choices I make in free will have a direct impact, on my karma because this is big stuff I'm dealing with, big stuff. And maybe for some of you, you are here to show people how free will and their karmic energy liberates them or gives them power in an appropriate way. But the thing that you have to deal with around fate, what you have kind of inculcated is a sense that you are here for this mission, Knight of Coins. And you may feel like you have to constantly be on the precipice because you're here to do that, like a knight, in an Arthurian legend who, is always dedicated, so dedicated that it's almost selfless. So it's pretty big stuff. And it may well be that you don't have to be as selfless as you think for your karma. So that may be what we're kind of exploring. So let's just see. I mean, if Knight of Coins, was operating as a difficult thing, like an expectation, it'd be like you felt like you were born to something. Like some of you might have been born into some, kind of like lineage, somebody who's born into the royal family feels they're born into a particular type of service and a particular type of destiny, whatever happens. If you're born into a powerful family, or if you were born into a system that is very controlling, and therefore you just have to go along with what your requirements are. But there's actually more freedom to create and liberate this energy in what you do with your free will than you may think. So, okay, so we're going to use the Dark Misfits Tarot. And as I said in the introduction, if something is upright or reverse, it really points to energies that we're looking at that are around the destiny. And so we're going to look first at the fate energy, then we're going to look at external and destiny, and then we're going to look at free will. But if something turns up upright or reversed, it's pointing to this destiny as part of whatever we're exploring in the other things. If it's going towards being reversed, it's something you need to explore in relation to what patterns you think you have to fully get to this point of the free will that creates your own awareness, your own understanding, your own karma, all of that kind of thing. If it's coming back up to being upright, then you have already assimilated that and you're now going to be able to use it more as free will. So what does that mean? So when we're looking at when we start with fate, when we start with this thing where you may have some sense that you have a calling that you have to do and have to be dedicated to. Yeah, that might feel a little bit like a straitjacket, to be honest. How is that operating for you at the moment? So we have justice coming up. You've been thinking about the justice of things and whatever's involved. You're ready to kind of like make free will decisions about it. Knight of Pentacles. Oh, wow. Knight of Pentacles. You're not entirely wrong that you have to do this, actually. You are here with a cause. You are here with like a knight. You're like a knight in the Arthurian legends. We have the Seven of Cups moving up. That's been also resolved, what your dreams and choices may be. Temperance moving up, also what's in balance and what's fair. And the Hermit, okay, it's very spiritual. And you may feel with some justification that this is something that only you can do, which is probably why that energy is there. So of all the groups, to some degree, your sense of fate, the sense of like what you really truly believe and how that's sort of like driving you is pretty close to right, to be honest. You do have a mission. And it's a very spiritual one. It's only one that only you can do, and it comes from your understanding. But the Hermit can lead to judgment, can lead to that sense of pure understanding that is operating. So that's there. This has got something to do with big picture politics or organisation or something. There's something to do with justice. And I think that you're very aware that there is something unjust that has to be made just. Now, that doesn't have to mean that you have to become some massive sort of politician or somebody who has huge power in something or in the legal system, though some of you may choose to do that, and that may be a way of doing it. But there is something about you have worked out what was unjust, what needs to shift, what your mission is. You've also worked out what options and what's probably realistic and what isn't realistic, and you've worked out what's imbalanced. It's not just, and it's spiritual as well as kind of legal or political. Like it's both. This is why you understanding the material world and what's required and understanding the spiritual world are meant to do this. So it's actually quite a bit of destiny that impacts this. You've had a sense of destiny since you were young, and you weren't wrong. Okay, so let's have a look at destiny then and the external. What's happening with that? Things that are outside of your direct control that are happening around this dynamic. So we have the Nine of Pentacles heading down into looking at what does this mean. We have the Ace of Swords coming up, a new idea, a new way of doing things. That's like Excalibur, like taking the sword up. Wow. It's very Arthurian, this, I have to say. The Empress is coming up to the surface. So like around your destiny, there's something about what growth would mean that you've worked out. And the Queen of Swords. Okay. It's like Excalibur, except it's like, I don't know, Guinevere or Morgan Le Fay that took the sword, because there's a very strong feminine energy here. You don't have to be a woman. This is a kind of a feminine energy. So in terms of how this is operating around destiny, there isn't right now a point. You are preparing for it. Like, so this is like there is your understanding of your fate and your understanding of who you are and why you are is there. It's there in your fate. You know it. But I feel like this is saying, because we don't have any upright or reversed. Right now, the external world has not called you to do this, but you are preparing for it. And like one part that this is inviting you to look at is, yes, you are right that you are the right person for this, but you don't have to do it entirely alone. Like you can only bring what you bring to it, but others can help you. So it's important to think about that. Have you decided that you are the lone knight? And is that actually limiting some of what you could do in your awareness of it? There are others that could help. You have worked through what it is that your mission is, and you're getting ready for it. And it's not just a new idea. It's very well thought out. You really do know what you're doing. You're very strategically sound, and you know what true growth and healing would look like. So there's there's something about the divine feminine. There's something here, and that came up in one of the other readings, which is interesting. So some of you might have gone to two. There's definitely something here about the return of the divine feminine in some way around this, but you don't have to do it alone. Okay, so then let's see, how are you using this sort of like understanding of karma, judgment, awareness, cause and effect, being able to choose when you need to choose? knowing what the calling is. Like, how is that operating to help you take this on? Because it's a pretty big thing you're taking on. We have the Five of Pentacles. Again, you don't have to be alone. This is what it's telling you. We have the Nine of Wands heading in that way too. Yeah, you don't have to be alone, because if you do that, you're going to exhaust yourself. There are others that can help. And we have the Death card reversed. You think you can't choose about that, but you can choose. Like, it's the one thing where you're, like, you feel like your destiny just has to be you, the lone rider, the hermit, the knight, but you actually can have other people. And that's the thing to be aware of. Others will help you with this. It's not a kind of it's not so set and concrete that it just has to be you. It's just that you are meant to do something, but there are others that can help you. That's what this is saying. Start to realize that. Start not to think that you have to be alone. Okay, so let's have a look and see what kind of other sort of oracular energy can we get you around understanding the fate aspect, how you're viewing this. Firstly, heart pendant. Your heart will lead you to the truth. Trust its quiet wisdom. So this could be, you know, that the other person is meant to be a lover or someone of your heart, or it could be what is in your heart, you know, because you're going to be dealing with some pretty material, powerful things. So your heart is probably meant to be a guide. And river, the current will take you forward whether you fight it or not. Yeah. And that's right. You're going to have to do this, because it's like, it's inescapable in a way, but you can really, you have a high order capacity to understand this on a karmic level, and to go then with the flow in a way that works. But your heart, don't leave yourself as a hermit in being alone. Connect with your heart for this. Okay, let's see then. If you were to manifest what you're meant to do with your destiny here on its highest spiritual level from the Saints and Mystics deck, what might that look like? What is something a bit similar to the energy of your destiny? Wow, we have Nostradamus. I won't try and pronounce it like the French. Nostradamus. Wow, of course. The understanding of what's coming, the understanding of of power and dealing with power and having a singular thing that only you can do. Like Nostradamus was a astrologer and a prophet for very powerful people, and possibly, despotic people too. There's something like that you do have a very high order awareness of what's coming. And it's made you feel a little bit alone, actually. A prophet is often not celebrated in their own land, but you are meant to find someone who's going to connect and help you with this. Not everyone's going to go, I don't want to hear about it, I don't want to know. Wow, yeah, so there's something very oracular for you, something prophetic for you. He's a good example of this energy and how it could play out. All right, so then let's also look at what astrologically both helps and what may limit you. So like what astrological energy will help you to take this on, because it's pretty, as I say, it's pretty full on what you're dealing with. What helps you? Chiron and Neptune. See this as something, again, this is why I keep getting the Arthurian thing, because it's sort of like, if you looked at Nostradamus a bit like Merlin helping Arthur heal the land, that's what the whole Arthurian legend is about, and finding the Holy Grail is about. So this is like the sort of, you are the spiritual guide. Like it's almost like you're meant to be a spiritual guide for someone in power. Like I think that might be what's going on here, and being dedicated to it, but also bringing the awareness and like bringing the heart back into it in some way. So this is something about healing through spiritual awareness and spiritual abilities. So what does that look like as a challenge? Jupiter and Pluto. Okay, this is like, is there something about what you want to do to heal it that would actually be too change? Could there be too much of a change energy for those that are benefiting out of a current system or whatever? So I think that the shift, like if you see Jupiter as being like Jupiter, Zeus being the rulership, rulers, it's the powerful change to rulers. It's knowing how to manage that and how to deal with that kind of energy in some way. So thinking about that, thinking about whatever you see coming and what you're telling, how can you present it in such a way that there isn't a kind of a direct block by those that are in power to what you're trying to do, because you're trying to heal energy and maybe possibly even trying to heal them. Okay, let's have a look at this on a more individual level around chakra energy for you. Don't know if you can hear my stomach rumbling. If you can, I'm sorry. I'm doing this just before lunch. Okay, so we have the third eye. I see, but I don't trust my intuition. Yeah, you don't necessarily know how good you are at this yet. You kind of think it's just, you stay dedicated, but you are really dialed in. So pay attention to that, and you're very telepathic. Then we have crown chakra. I sense infinite wisdom. So you know that the divine knows what it's doing, and you know about karma, but you're kind of underestimating yourself. So just kind of realize that you're built for this. Pile 3. And then we have the solar plexus, and I do have a sense of humor. Yeah, that would be helpful. This is pretty full on. So having a sense of humor about it is really, really good. And sometimes that's a way of dealing with this. Sometimes, back in the day in medieval courts, the jokers, the jesters, the satirists were incredibly powerful because they could tell truth to power in a way that others couldn't, and it had to do with humor. So maybe sometimes that's a sign you can use that as well. Okay, to finish off, I just want to look at a psychic or spiritual or sort of magical energy that you could use, a skill that you could have that you could use, or an approach that would be helpful for you to meet your destiny and manage your fate in a way that allows you the maximum free will. So please choose a number between 1 and 5. If you have to pause to do that, then do that, because I'm about to lay them out, and then I'll tell you what each means depending on which you chose. So for number 1, we have listen. For number 2, we have ascension. For number 3, we have rest. Oh, gee, my stomach's going. I hope you're not hearing that. For number 4, we have guide. And for number 5, we have elemental magic. Okay, so for number 1, the biggest thing that you can bring to this is finding a stillness to really hear what's going on. You're very dedicated, you're very aware, you can see the consequences of things, but I think there's a lot of complexity in this situation. And I almost feel like it's also the stillness of listening to your heart so that the big side of this doesn't become overwhelming. For number 2, this is about spiritual ascension. So this is a pretty big issue for yourself and for others. It may be that for you, this is the dedication to allow others to ascend and yourself to ascend out of the material trap, out of the prison planet. There's a sort of sense of almost Gnostic spiritual war potentially around this as well. If you chose number 3, I think that a lot of your downloads and what you need to do will come when you sleep or in astral travel or something like that. It feels like that you need to find a space to rest and be quiet and go within, because there's a lot of noise around all this and a lot of power around all this, so you have to be able to go within. If you chose number 4, you've got an extremely strong guide, and they're going to really help you with this. Like I would say a very powerful, high order, primordial, angelic, or whatever it is, guide. So it's to let you know you have that. And yeah, you're not alone. I think there's people that can help you, but you're also not alone on that level. And lastly, if you chose number 5, then I think that, practicing some elemental magic, making sure that the different elements in your life are in balance, all of that is important. It will give you the sustenance and the resilience to do this, and an understanding of how power operates as well. So I hope that resonates for you. It's pretty full on, but I hope, you're obviously the person for it. I hope that you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.